and welcome to Craft with Sarah and day 16 of the Christmas Craft Countdown, where I'm releasing a new Christmas craft every day for 20 days. Today's project is this gorgeous layered cardinal bird. The majestic bird is sat on a tree branch filled with holly and snow, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So without any further ado, let's jump in and see how to make this gorgeous little bird. First, you need to download the cutting file to make this project. If you aren't already signed up to the Christmas Craft Countdown, go to craftwithsarah.com/Christmas 2021 to join. If you have already purchased the countdown, go to craftwithsarah.com/login to log in to your account and access all of the Christmas Craft Countdown files. Once logged in, click into the Christmas Craft Countdown. Scroll down the page and all the files will become available on the date specified. The files do not expire, so you can download them at any time. The files for this project can be found under the Day 16 heading. After downloading the cutting files, you'll need to unzip the folder that they come in. If you aren't sure how to do that, check the link in the description of this video, which contains instructions on how to unzip folders on Windows computers, Macs, and Android and iPhone devices. Once you've downloaded and unzipped the folder, it's time to upload the SVG file into Cricut Design Space. Create a new file in Design Space and then go into Upload and then Upload Image. You can then either click Browse or drag and drop the file in. The file you want to choose is the one called SVG Cardinal craftwithsarah.svg. Any of the other files included in the folder won't work properly in Design Space, so make sure you choose the one which starts SVG. I'm going to drag and drop mine in, and then this is what it should look like with all the layers appearing one on top of the other. If yours looks different and you can see all the layers completely separated on the screen, that means you've uploaded the wrong file. So if that's the case, just click cancel and then try again and make sure you choose the one which starts SVG. I'm going to go ahead and click upload, and then it will be in my recent uploads, so I can click on it and then go add to canvas. This comes all ready to cut, apart from we need to resize it to make sure it's going to fit in its intended frame. After downloading the file from inside your Craft with Sarah account, you next need to measure your shadow box frame so that you know how big to make the design to cut it out. Now, normally with layered designs, I put them in shadow boxes, which are quite thick frames, and they give you that dimension down. However, as this design with the cardinal is kind of a long and thin design rather than square, I'm going to put it in a rectangular frame. So let's move that one to one side and bring in my photo frame. So the main difference with using a photo frame is that you don't have that depth for the design to sit behind the glass. So if you're using a standard photo frame, you'll probably need to put it without the glass in the front because you need the space for the layers to pop out. I've done this for quite a few different projects over the years, and I was worried to start with that without the glass it would all get quite dusty, but it hasn't actually seemed to. It seemed to work out pretty well. So I do think that photo frames are a good way to frame your layered designs if you can't get hold of a shadow box. This is an A4 sized frame, and I just need to work out how big I want to make the design. So I've got a ruler and I'm just going to roughly have a little look and see. So what I'll probably do is add some pretty Christmas papers around the edge. So I need my design to have a little bit of a gap around the edge to see those papers. I think about 9 inches tall will work well. And then when I change the size to 9 inches in Design Space, I just need to check that the width is going to fit as well. So let's go into Design Space and resize the design, and then we can just have a little look at the width. Now I know the size I need to make my cardinal. I can click on it. And then in the width and height boxes at the top, make sure that the padlock icon is closed. If yours is open, then simply click it to close it. And then I'm going to change the height to 9 inches, press enter on my keyboard, and then the width changes in proportion. So this is now completely ready for me to cut, so I can go ahead, click make it, and that will sort all of the different colours out into the separate mats. If you need to change it, you can just go into the drop down to change the paper size. When you're happy with how it's all looking, simply press continue, and then that will connect to your Cricut machine, and then go ahead, cut everything out from cardstock, and then I'll show you how to stick it together. Here are all the layers of my cardinal cut out from cardstock, and I've just roughly placed everything in position so that I know that I've got all of the different bits, I've not lost anything along the way, and also just to check that I'm happy with all of the colours that I've chosen. So what I'm going to do now is just bring all of these layers apart so I can start sticking it together, because we're going to start at the bottom and then work our way up. So let's just carefully take some of these pieces apart. It doesn't matter if you kind of mess up the order, because we can get that right as we are going forward. But here's the very bottom layer, and then the one that's going to go on top of that is this one. So we're going to be using a combination of glue and 3D foam pads. The glue I like to use is called Collall. It's a solvent glue, and the reason I like it is because it doesn't bend or warp the cardstock like some other glues can do. Now this is quite a big bottle, so I put it into these tiny needle tip applicator bottles, which I get on Amazon. I'll drop the link to all of these products in the description of the video. And these are awesome because the tips are so thin that it lets you get the glue into all of the teeny tiny places on the layered designs. There are loads of different brands of 3D foam pads available. My favourite is these from Dot & Dab, because the kind of paper on top of the stickiness comes off really easily, so I find them really easy to use. These ones are quite big, so I will cut them smaller. You can see I've got a little pile here of foam pads that I've just cut with a pair of scissors, so that I don't need to use as many, and it'll be easier to get them into the smaller places. And then let's get cracking on our cardinal. So for this layer, I'm going to glue it. So let's turn it upside down and add the glue. So you want to make sure your glue goes into all of the kind of sticky out bits, so it'll have a really good stick to it, and it's not going to come off or start to sort of pop up at those edges. And then I'll put a bit in the middle as well, and then just very carefully go around the top of that cardinal. I've just noticed that I've got a little bit of the middle of that leaf still on there that I didn't pick out, so get rid of that, and then I'm going to stick this to my base layer. One nice thing about using glue is that you've got that bit of wiggle room if you need to move it about a bit if you don't quite get it lined up perfectly on the first go. But that looks pretty good. I don't want to squidge it down too much because I don't want any of that glue to come out of the edges. It has done a little bit in that top part of the head, but it will dry clear anyway, so I'm not too worried. The next layer is the other large red piece here, and I'm going to use 3D foam pads for this one to raise it up a little bit and get that depth between the head and the body of the bird. So let's take some foam pads, and again you want to make sure you've got your foam into those sticky out bits like the holly leaves and the branch of the tree and places like that. If you've got big foam pads, then just use a pair of scissors to cut them down. You want to add quite a good amount, and also make sure you get some in the middle of all the big spaces of card. So for example, along here, and also in the big sets of holly. And the reason we do that is because it makes it really stable, so the card's not going to sag in those large areas. If we didn't put any foam pads in these large areas, then when we start to add the other bits of card on top, the weight of that will push this layer down and you'll get it kind of dipping in the middle. And we don't want that. We want it to be nice and firm and flat. So that's why I'm putting on so many foam pads. There we go. Now around here, this is really thin around the edge of the floral part. So what I think I'll do is cut some really tiny pieces of foam and try and get some around that edge. Again, just to stop that edge part from sagging down. So there's one bit. Try to make sure that your foam pads don't go over the edge of any of that red card, because if it does, then you'll be able to see it from the other side, which we don't want. If this bit is a little bit fiddly, then just don't worry about it too much. This part with the chest of the cardinal isn't actually going to have anything on top of it, so it shouldn't sag down too much anyway. Now that I've added all the foam, I can peel the top paper bits off to reveal all of the stickiness underneath. I think that's all of them. So let's bring this back in and stick the next layer on top. So let's just line up those holly leaves. And what I like to do is just gently drop it on to start with, which means if you didn't quite line it up right, you should be able to peel it back off and try again. So I only push it down to really stick those foam pads when I'm happy that it is in the right place. We've got one more layer of the cardinal's feathers, just trying to extract it from all of the other pieces. You want to be careful because all the bits of holly and the leaves kind of catch on each other, so I don't want to rip anything. Now here's the next bit, and for this one I'm going to glue it. You could use foam if you wanted the wing and the tail to be up a little bit more, but as we've still got a lot of layers to go, I think glue is probably going to look best. So let's just add some glue to the back of this piece, just like we did a little bit earlier. Now I can pick it up and stick it onto the top. Again, I'm going to use these bottom holly leaves as my guide to make sure that's stuck on. I love how all of these 3 different shades of red look together as well. It really helps to add to the depth and the detail on the cardinal. So there we go, there's that one done. Time to move on to the next layer, which is the snow. So this is going to sit on the top like this. And we want the snow to kind of look like it's upwards from the bird, so I'm going to use 3D foam pads. This is probably another one of those layers where you could use glue or foam, but I'm going to go with the foam. One thing I probably should have said at the beginning of this video is that included in the file download that you can get from your Craft with Sarah account after joining the Christmas Craft Countdown is you get an assembly guide PDF which has pictures of all of the layers, and then it's got numbered instructions on the order in which to stick them together and whether to use glue or foam pads for each layer. So that kind of assembly guide is included with all of my layered designs, and I think it just makes it a little bit easier to see what to stick together without having to watch this video every time you want to make one. And also because it's a PDF, it means you can print it out. So if you're not crafting by a computer, then you can just print it out and then you've got it for whenever you need to refer to it. So this one's a little bit fiddly. But let's get that into place. There we are, and then push down to seal. Next, we're moving on to the bright green part. Ooh, I'm just getting all of my holly leaves caught up now. So this bit's going to sit on top of the snow. And for this one, because I don't want the snow to appear too far underneath all of the green bits, I'm going to glue this one. So let's add our glue to the back. You want to be careful that you don't rip it in the middle where that tree branch is, because it is quite narrow. So just be really, really careful when moving the pieces of card about. This is definitely one of the fiddlier layered designs that I've got available, but it does look really beautiful when it's all stuck together. So it gets a bit harder to line up now because the green obviously doesn't completely cover all of that white. But you can still use those bottom holly leaves as a guide. There is that one. Next, there is the brown tree trunk, which is going to go on here. And for this one, it is kind of optional again if you want to use the glue or the foam. I'm just having a think. And I am going to use glue because, again, I don't want that snow to be too far underneath the branch, because obviously in real life that snow would be on top of the branch, but because of how the layering is done, I couldn't get that to work out. So let's glue this branch, and then the top honey leaves on top of this branch in a minute I'll do with foam so that you still get that extra little 3D effect. Very fiddly now. Let's line that up. So the brown will cover all of the green along the tree branch part. There, like that. And now we just have our holly leaves and then the face of the cardinal to do. So let's bring everything back. With the holly leaves, they are all slightly different sizes. So what I'd recommend doing is actually layering them, putting them on top, just placing them on without sticking them, just to make sure that you've got them all in the right place, because you don't want to stick one of them down and then realize it was the wrong one. So let's just place those. And now I know which one's which, I'm going to add my foam pads. Make sure you don't get any foam over the gaps in the middle of the leaves, because otherwise you'll see it from the front. Turn it right way round and make sure those leaves are in the right place. And stick. And then just one more, which is the two little leaves on their own. There we go. 3 little bits of foam pad is quite enough for that. And stick that down. Okay, now we can move on to the little holly berries. So these will come in 2 parts. You've got a white part and a red part, and the white's just to show that little shine on the berries to give it a bit more visual appeal. So first I'm going to glue the red berries to the white. Just a bit of glue on there. I'm not really worried about the glue showing through the holes in the red because it will dry clear, so you won't see it when it's all dry. Number 1. If you didn't want the glue, you could just kind of add it to the edge like this, and then it shouldn't show through those little circles. It has showed through a little bit, but it'll be fine once it's dry. Oops, dropped it. Here we go. I think these are all the same size, so it doesn't really matter which one you stick on which. And now they can go on to the the holly leaves, but I'm just going to give them a little couple of minutes to dry for that glue. So let's do the face of the cardinal first. This has several parts to it. You've got the main black, which is going to go on there. Then you've got two separate pieces for the beak. You've got a white circle for an eye, and then the black eye to go on top. It's probably really hard to see against my black background. So I'm going to start with the black piece for the face, and that's going to go on there. And I'll use foam pads for that one. And just one little bit of foam will be fine. There. And next I'm going to add the beak. So let's do that first. Layer the solid one with a bit of foam. Just lines up there. Or have I done that upside down? Let's see. Is it? I think that was right. This is why I need that guide. I think that was right. Okay, and then we've got the little outline layer, which is up to you if you add it or not, but it just gives that beak a bit more definition. I'm going to add a teeny bit of glue to here. This is definitely one of those cases where those needle tip bottles come in handy. There we go. And then for the eye, I want to add the white bit first. So just a little dab of glue. And stick on that white part. And then a tiny bit more glue on top of that. And I'm going to stick the black part of the eye so that, I'm going to drop it first. These are very, very fiddly. You might want to use tweezers to grip it. So I'm going to put that on top so that there's just a tiny bit of white showing at the bottom to give it a little bit more character, and so that you can actually see that eye because it's black going on another black layer, so it can be a bit harder to see otherwise. Now that cardinal's done, it's time to add the berries, and I think I'll pop them out with a little bit of foam, but I'll need to cut it smaller. So just take my scissors and make some little squares. For these, I'm going to cheat a little bit and put the foam straight onto the design that's already done. There's the other half of my squares. There we are. And then you just want to make sure you put these on the right way. So you've got one bigger holly berry than the other two. So just make sure that you line that up against the green parts. Otherwise it won't cover it properly. There we go, that's number 3. And now that is my layered cardinal all done. If I turn it round, you can see those layers in there. And this is now ready to go in the frame. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to make the layered cardinal design. To get the file, head to craftwithsarah.com/Christmas 2021. I'll be back again tomorrow with another craft project, but until then, thank you for watching. Bye!